Hi, welcome to the Go Higher Frequency Astrology channel. My name is Suzanne. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the upcoming Pluto retrograde, which happens on May the 7th. I want to review the main themes that we are all learning while Pluto is in gate 41, the gate of decrease, but specifically the lines we are reviewing this year, lines 2 through 4. But before I begin, I want to talk about something very personal that happened to me a couple of days before this full moon in Scorpio, and how this experience illustrates how somebody's chart still is activated even after their death. I'm going to be leaving timestamps below, so feel free to jump around to the parts that interest you the most. Right before my Uranus opposition, I found out that my dad had stage 4 lung cancer. This was around the holidays in 2017. I was extraordinarily close to my father, even though we disagreed about a few fundamental things, especially politics. As most of you probably know, this was about the time Trump was elected for the first time. I was so angry at the time. I regret to say that I sent him a pretty harsh email right before I found out that he was sick. It was something about how he had raised his sons. And I remember how gracious he was in his reply. He told me, "Don't worry about it. This is just rich men fighting each other." My dad's lung cancer progressed very quickly, and he died on March the 21st, 2018. I was lucky enough to be by his side when he died. He died on the cross of the vessel of love, right after the sun moved into Aries. And he was indeed loved, surrounded by most of his 9 children. He brought our fractured family together for his death. We started to break apart during the Obama years when social media was at its height, and politics started to get really ugly over the fight for gay marriage. I was brought up in a very conservative evangelical Christian family. My personal upbringing was very chaotic, with everyone at war with each other, kind of like how we are in the United States right now. But after my parents divorced in my college years, many of us bonded for a few good years. And my dad and my eldest sister became the center of our family gatherings. My father was pained by our separation, but he maintained connections with each of us individually. And I was always overjoyed when he came to visit me in New York City. It was amazing to see our family surround him when he died. But unfortunately, after his death, our coming together did not last. We were torn once again over COVID, and me very personally about the trans kids' madness. So many lies and polarized discussions in the media, which of course seeped through into the wider community and broke up so many families. Deliberately, by politicians. Something magical happened just recently. On April the 29th, my eldest sister emailed me, begging me to come to her daughter's wedding. I had sent my niece a gift, but declined the invite since we hadn't spoken in many, many years. My sister said she wanted me there to see my dad smile. I didn't have the money to go, but that personal email was an opening that I immediately knew that I needed to respond positively to. I asked her if we could talk on the phone. But even before we talked, I knew that I would be going. My dad had arranged this phone call. He was smiling already. I felt his presence. These moments are proof that a chart keeps responding even after a person's death. My dad was born on the cross of the Sphinx, very near this full moon in Scorpio. You see his Mercury was applying to my Uranus degree, or transiting Uranus at the time of my birth. And when he died, the South Node was applying to my Mercury degree. And Mercury rules my South Node. And you see his Uranus is applying to my South Node. And if you know where Uranus is right now, Uranus is almost in this same position. And Uranus squares my moon degree, and his South Node was conjunct my moon. It's in a square to my nodes. And with Uranus applying, I was a little bit angsty about what this transit might mean I had a lot of speculations. My whole family's charts were aspected during this time. I thought, oh God, maybe it's going to be another cross country move. Oh, please, we don't have any more money. Please don't make it this. But now I see it starting to come together. And now I'm less anxious about it. Thank God. This is going to be a unification with my family, possibly. Hopefully. My sister's Venus happens to be right near my dad's North Node. So when I looked at all of these transits coming together, he, if he was alive, would be experiencing a Uranus return, a Jupiter return, and a Pluto return all at the same time. His chart energetics are very alive. And when I told my sister this, she kind of was confused. She, doesn't practice astrology like I do. She doesn't see the symbolism as clearly as I do. And she kind of waved it off. She said, I don't really know why I called you, but I felt this deep need to call you. I didn't call any of my other siblings. I needed you to be there. I needed to feel Dad smile. And she had some of the same regrets that I had about that letter that I sent to my dad before I found out that he was sick. She said she had been angry at him for a full year. She had treated him pretty rotten the full year leading up to his death. She had a lot of anger about the family in general. And you see how many years we waste being angry at each other? It's really sad the way that politics has divided us, because at the end of the day, we are not so different. We have different thoughts about how we want the country to go, but it is super manipulated by the people in charge. They want to distract us from the main issues, which are more about opportunity, about economics, about needing to be in alignment with our purpose, needing to survive during this time. After he died, my sister shared with us this video it took on her property while her family was away on vacation. It perfectly represented my dad's Uranian humor. He was one of a kind.
And it ain't I stay, girls. Look at Papa Bo. He's got your boo. Yay. Ooh-wee. Hey, Mama. Hey, Mama. This is to you, girls. Hope you're having fun. Papa Bo is. I got some suggestions. I need a tray. I need something to lay on to get a sand. How can I get a tan like this? Huh?
People born on the cross of the Sphinx show us the way. And he, being a 2-4, was a genius at that. His death launched me on this path toward healing some of my deep wounds that I carried, especially around my faith. I experienced my Chiron return with the United States, so I've been seeing my family drama play out on the national stage. It's been painful, but I'm so thankful I've been able to process it through astrology and human design. It helps ground me to understand the bigger cycles at work. It helps me rise above it. Not always, but it helps. After my Chiron return, I'm heading toward the stability and wisdom of Saturn and away from the growth and chaos of Uranus. I will always be Uranian with Uranus in my first house, but I have been slowly learning how to find stillness in the chaos. You see that his Uranus and Saturn straddled my South Node. So he's knocking at my door and he's reminding me that I need to return again. He leads me even after his death. Before I had my phone conversation with my sister on April the 30th, the day before the full moon in Scorpio, I decided to pull some cards from a tarot deck I've recently fallen in love with. This tarot deck was created by a wonderful artist I met through my dear friend and fellow astrologer, Dabney Lawless. Her name is Sue Hawks, and she's experiencing a nodal return this year, so also on this Pisces Virgo axis. And through her, I met her partner, the writer E.J. Cochran. EJ lost her sister around the same time my father died, and her sister's north node falls right on my sun. And leading up to this time period, I did readings for a few people who lost loved ones near this time period, and all of them had connections to my sun. I truly believe each one of us is connected by the spirits of our ancestors. The cards that fell out were destruction and sacred reciprocity. The messages were perfect to describe Pluto's transits through gate 41, which I'll explain momentarily. I'm going to leave a link to this wonderful deck. Hurry up and purchase it as it's almost out of stock. Hopefully Sue can get a publisher soon so she can mass produce it, because it's really a beautiful deck. And I've been getting a lot of just very synchronistic pulls whenever I go through and pull a card from this deck. This doesn't always happen to me. So I know that this deck is really special. I don't know what it is about this deck, but it's really special. I'm also going to link EJ's books below. Her books are mysteries. And like this deck, they also feature dogs. Dogs connect us too. Recently, I've told a couple of people that I saw my dad's spirit in my dog, Winston, a dog I got for my son, a rescue born in 2021. I've never looked at my dad and Winston's chart before this day, and I'm simply amazed at their connections. This is Winston's chart on the outer wheel, and you see that his sun is conjunct my dad's Neptune, and Neptune is on his descendant. And he has his Mercury degree right near my dad's moon, and his Venus degree right near my dad's sun, and his north node right on my dad's Uranus degree. The reason that I started to notice my dad's spirit in my dog was because my dad used to tap dance for us when he was making us breakfast. He made us laugh so much with his tap dance. And my dog does this dance every morning when I make him food. And it reminded me of my dad. I loved my dad's spirit. He really tried to make each of us feel that spirit of joy, even though he had a lot of worries and stress about keeping our family together. And he fought a lot with my mom over money, really, and power and who controls things. They both were Pluto and Leo, and they both had very specific dreams that they wanted to actualize. Oh, how we are all connected in this world. If we would only realize it, we wouldn't have to be so miserable fighting these ridiculous wars over whose God is the best, who has the right to resources, who has the right to control others. If we would all realize that at our hearts, we are more similar than we are led to believe. And if we could come together, we could make this world the Eden that we're all waiting for somehow to come to us after we're dead. We could make this world today the Eden that so many people are clamoring toward. All of this fighting over material abundance is making nobody happy. Do you see anybody that has all of this wealth really happy? I don't. They look pretty miserable to me. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of transits leading up to the Pluto retrograde on May the 7th. On Monday night, May 4th, about an hour after Trump's lunar return, Trump's chart is on the inner wheel of this transit chart on the outer wheel. About an hour after his lunar return, Mars on the cusp of his 9th house squares Jupiter in his 11th house. At its best, this aspect can describe keeping calm when everything and everyone around you is going crazy. and the courage it takes to gamble on something new despite the uncertainty of receiving support later on. At its worst, it can describe having an overinflated sense of self-sufficiency, acting too assertively in the early stages, thereby attracting opposition, which leads to underestimating the power and resources of one's adversaries. The following night, on Cinco de Mayo, Mercury in his ninth house will square Pluto in his sixth house. This aspect can describe this obsession with being at the top of the food chain, which can lead to indiscriminate sharing with the wrong people or indiscriminate negotiations with the wrong people, bringing the wrong people into your life who will deplete your resources and make you sick. On May the 6th at 11:30 Eastern Time, Pluto stations retrograde. I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about Pluto's themes in Gate 41 before reviewing the movement of Pluto in lines 2 through 4 that we are reviewing this year. The 41st hexagram is about gain through loss. Now, remember the card I drew about destruction. It's a Plutonic card. It describes the death and rebirth cycle. Now, this doesn't have to be physical death. We have many opportunities to die to ourselves, to be reborn, to wake up to a new understanding. And this is what we're all having the opportunity to do as a collective. And this hexagram teaches us about reciprocity, because in that death and rebirth cycle, you must give something up to be born anew. It's the natural cycle of life. Too many people are hoarding their resources, compounding their interests without investing in anything that's actually producing something tangible or life-giving, not to mention life-sustaining. This transit reminds us to see the bigger picture and to not be afraid of letting something go, because better things might be on the horizon. When researching other people's interpretations of this hexagram, I found this description from Hilary Barrett's website, I Ching with Clarity. It was so spot on with describing the themes that are playing out right now. She says, what is below is decreased to the benefit of what is above. This is out and out decrease. If the foundations of a building are decreased in strength and the upper walls are strengthened, the whole structure loses its stability. Likewise, a decrease in the prosperity of the people in favor of the government is out and out decrease. So this hexagram is teaching us about how this shift of wealth can take place without causing the sources of wealth in the nation and its lower classes to fail. Ra Uru says, this is the key to what it is to be human. Its mechanic is that it is always about hunger. A human being is so different from its animal kin. The animal kin only has one kind of hunger, basic, predatory, hunger to stay alive. But human beings have a duality in this. We have the material hunger, the hunger for survival, but we also have this other hunger, the deeper one, the human hunger for experience, the hunger to go to Mars and see what the rocks look like. What for? Just to see what the rocks are. To discover America. What for? Just to see what is there on the other side. The basic fuel, the fundamental fuel for the evolutionary process is the hunger to feel. We entered the fourth line of Gate 41 on March the 12th, a couple of weeks after the attack on Iran. The month-long stretch between March the 12th and the ceasefire on April the 7th was the most violent and economically disruptive phase of the war. And since then, we've been at this standstill that is disrupting the global supply chain and is going to have ramifications for the rest of the world if we keep this up. This line is called correction, and Ra describes it like this. It's about successful adaptation to limitation. The limitation is, I am a fuel, I am not a potential. Here we have a classic line. It's survival of the fittest in the Darwinian concept and its eventual flourishing. The fixedness of humanity on a feeling, on a fantasy, guaranteed that it would be at the top of the food chain. The survival of the fittest is the perfection that comes out of being unidirectional in one's fantasy and feeling to get there finally, to be able to fly, to be able to go to space, to do whatever the case may be, and to be fixed on that. This retrograde, located in Washington, D.C., happens on the 3-5 profile cross of the Sphinx, the cross that I was just talking about with regards to my father. It starts the quarter of civilization where we are focused on materializing something. The cross's theme is about material forces disrupting creativity and leading to over-ambition. Fascinatingly, in the description of this profile on this cross, Ra uses the example of another New York City real estate developer, William Zeckendorf Sr. From the start of his career, Zeckendorf had been able to use his deal-making skills to acquire or build projects for which he lacked the funds. But in time, the underfunding caught up with him, and his overextended company crashed in a spectacular bankruptcy. You see that Mars and Chiron are applying to a conjunction at the top of this chart, and this conjunction will perfect on the new moon in Taurus on May the 16th. And I'll review that new moon at a later date. But I wanted to review what happened the last time that Mars and Chiron conjunct in May of 2024, because some of the themes are very present today. Just 10 days before the conjunction in 2024, the Iranian president and foreign minister Ibrahim Raisi died in a helicopter crash. This sent shockwaves through the Middle East, sparking immediate speculation about Iran's internal succession. And in the days leading up to this conjunction, in a historic move, the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, ICC, sought arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. Shortly after, the International Court of Justice, or ICJ, ordered Israel to halt its military offensive in Rafah. And one day before May the 29th, Spain, Norway, and Ireland formally recognized the state of Palestine, a coordinated move that highlighted a growing diplomatic rift in Europe over the Gaza conflict. And Donald Trump was found guilty just one day after this conjunction. So all of these themes are very present in this time and on the world stage, how our world leaders have been acting and the tension around their actions. And it'll be interesting to see the evolution of some of these themes, and especially on this cross. It's so interesting to see the description that Ra has about this real estate developer and how he was eventually overextended, because it really describes Trump's legacy and how he led all of his companies into bankruptcy. The United States is in a very vulnerable position in overextending its capacity. And this war is definitely putting us in a vulnerable state in losing the dollar's hegemony, and how we are at the precipice of creating a world disaster. So it'll be interesting to see if this conjunction actually leads us further down this path of destruction, or if we'll see some Saturnian payback for these leaders acting so recklessly on the world stage and endangering all of the other countries that are dependent upon the oil and all of the things that are being clogged up in this conflict. And you see that in this chart, even though the squares have passed, they're still very much present in this tension. So we'll be in the retrograde of this line until July the 3rd. And then it moves back into the third line. And that is a very dangerous time. So I'll talk about that next. We entered the third line for the first time on February the 7th, and it stayed in that third line before transiting the fourth line on March the 12th. And remember, we attacked Iran when Pluto was in this line, and it will retrograde back in this line between July the 4th and August the 14th. Pluto will go out of bounds to the south on August the 12th, right before switching back to line 2. This time period looks particularly rough as it includes the first eclipse, and it also includes a nodal shift into gate 30, which will complete the entire channel of recognition. And the third line is about the trial and error process, bonds made and broken. It's about this learning process, which is called efficiency here. In times of decrease, selfishness is justified. In that moment of your feeling, what it's saying is release your energy into that feeling and you will discover whether that is a mistake or not. Wait and see, but release all of your energy into that feeling. That is efficient. And Saturn is exalted here. It's about material ambition and the discipline to go at it alone. It's the energy that fuels a feeling for personal ambition. This is very much oriented toward the personal ambition, not a collective ambition. And you see that Trump decided to attack Iran without a collective unification, without making the case, without bringing allies into the decision-making process, because he wanted to do what no other presidents had the courage to do before him. He wanted to be at the top of the pyramid when people thought about how much courage he had to attack Iran when everybody else had declined. They were thinking about the collective and the risks to the collective. They weren't thinking about their personal ambition, but Trump was thinking about his personal ambition. And the moon is in detriment in this line. It's about instinctive assistance, admirable, but in this position, misguided, where two will use up resources more than twice as fast as one. And that's why we saw so many people decline to help Trump out in this attack, because they already had very little resources. This war was already impacting them. He did not consult anyone else when he attacked Iran, because he knew that if he did, they would probably talk him out of it. Everybody else was against this war. On August the 14th, Pluto retrogrades back into line 2, and it'll be in line 2 until pretty much the end of the year. So it'll be in line 2 when we have the midterms. And we already experienced line 2 and the retrograde of line 2. We experienced it in 2025, and we also experienced it at the earlier part of this year. And so this is the final time we will experience Pluto in this line. And Pluto will be out of bounds to the south during the entirety of Pluto in this line. 41 line 2 is a projection of caution with the nature of Mars and Saturn. Now, Saturn is exalted in this line, and it describes a conservative nature that does not risk its own security in aiding others. You can fantasize how you can help somebody, and you can then go and focus and do that, or you can fantasize on helping somebody and not being able to manifest that at all. You can have a feeling for starving children in Gaza and not be able to send them any coins. These are all things that are built into this Saturnian line. And you see this playing out in the ways that the UN pronounces these things, rebuking Israel's actions in Gaza and rebuking Israel's actions in Lebanon, but not having any power to do anything about it, or not having any courage to do anything about it. And Mars is in detriment here. So it's the energy for the display of feelings for recognition. This is trying to get others to recognize that one is a feeling person. Remember that the second line is projecting outwards. a desire for recognition that throws caution to the winds, depleting valuable resources for only temporary gain. So this stream is about a desire for change, for experience, and about the desire to fulfill one's fantasies. It's the expectation that if one has a fantasy and fulfills it, one is going to get something. The second line is projecting outwards, that they have this resource inside of them. And if you remember, during 2025 and the earlier part of this year, Trump was really trying to get that Nobel Peace Prize. He was trying to make all these negotiations so he could be rewarded for his efforts in ending wars. And he did all of this experimentation, and people submitted him as a candidate. We also saw the person that actually got the Nobel Peace Prize from Venezuela. She gave him her Nobel Peace Prize. It's something that he really wanted and he desired, but he couldn't get it. So then he shifted his actions. He even said that, since I'm not getting the Peace Prize, I might as well take a risk and actually go to war, which, is not very rational, but that's the state of mind of our president. I hope you got some insight about what we are reviewing during the movement of Pluto in gate 41 through lines 2 through 4. And in summary, what I see is that we're in a very precarious spot. I think everybody knows that. And I do feel that we're very vulnerable to overextension, and there'll be possibly, hopefully, a pulling back because of that, a retreat. But we have that dangerous moment in July through August where we go back into that third line. And I think a lot of astrologers are looking at that time period as being particularly dangerous. It's the solar eclipse in Leo. So we'll see if there's another attack of some kind during that time period. But then we move back into line 2, where it's much more cautious, and we may be really internally reviewing what it means to negotiate for peace instead of this aggressive moving forward to war. Maybe we'll pull back, and for whatever motivation that line 2 involves, that will really review what it is to be at war and the chaos that we've created with all of these distractions on the world stage, and also splitting our country against each other. Are we going to continue to do that? Are we going to unify? Uranus in Gemini and our Uranus return often implies conflict, but it also implies coming together in a new rebirth manner. And so I'm not sure when that will be, but I think for the rest of this year, after that very scary period, we're going to go into a place of really internalizing what it is that we want, and to internalizing what we want moving forward. We've had a lot of destruction, but what new things do we want to create as a country? And how can we unify? I hope that we do that. I hope that that line 2 is really bringing us to internalize different ways at negotiating peace. And then in 2027, we're really universalizing. We're going into the latter lines of decrease. So it definitely does imply that this period is going to universalize more of a global recession. Now, the strength of that global depression, I think, all depends on what happens the rest of this year. I'm hoping it's not going to be as bad as some of the other global recessions, but it's not looking so great right now. But I'll review all of this movement as we move along the rest of the year. I just really wanted to give us a bigger picture of this movement and what we're seeing right now and what may be possible in the months following, and whether we are going to pull back because we've overextended before we really become vulnerable to collapsing. A divided house falls, and we really need to look at what it is that we want to create in the United States and how we want to lead or not lead on the world stage and how we want to move forward with our allies. I hope all of those things will be worked out without too much chaos and conflict as the year moves on. So that's it for me. I hope this was helpful. I'll see you next time.